This is the Franchise QB Podcast, where we empower entrepreneurs to win big in franchising. We huddle up weekly to educate our audience about the most successful small business model ever created, franchising.
Welcome to the Franchise QB Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Halpern, a 20-year industry veteran and entrepreneur. My mission is for listeners to achieve their American dreams of creating wealth and independence through franchise ownership. Every week, we speak with franchisees, franchisors, or vendors that support the industry. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started.
Joining us in the huddle today is Richard Peroe, Senior Director of Franchise Development with Heart to Home Meals. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Hey, Mike. Thank you for inviting me here.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. So you have a 35-year history working various roles within the Jackson Hewitt tax franchise system, kind of a household name brand that most of our audience will know about. Tell us a little bit about your career with Jackson Hewitt and why you decided eventually to move into the senior care and senior nutrition space.
Yeah, absolutely. You say 35 years, and I just say, wow, that really dates me. But I swear I was a kid when I got into this business. It's kind of funny. I was a young guy coming out of Old Dominion and actually met Patty Robertson, who was John Hewitt's daughter, coming out of a career development center. And I'd just been in a meeting that said, Richard, you're a young guy with little experience coming out of an okay school with okay grades. You got to take what you can get, buddy. And literally ran into Patty, and she said, hey, I'm looking for somebody that is looking to travel and wants to be involved with a startup business. And I thought, hey, sounds good to me. I've got nothing else. So I signed in for Jackson Hewitt as a troubleshooter and trainer. And it was a part-time or 3-4 months job. It was seasonal. And at the end of it, they said, you know what? We think you can sell franchises. And I thought, I don't have another job. It's going to take about 4 months to figure out I can't do that, and I'm going to find something new. So it really, like most people, I didn't come into franchising knowing exactly what I wanted to do, and that's where I wanted to go. And it really took on a life of its own. Jackson Hewitt was such a young company. There was a lot of passion, a lot of excitement, new franchisees coming in, new systems being developed. And so I did franchise development with them for 10 years. And then after that, a company called Syndic came in. And Syndic, they're a large operator. They used to have Avis, Century 21, Coldwell Banker back in the mergers period. It got all merged, and I ended up doing franchise support. I was a regional director for them for quite some time. Boy, as a development guy, getting to support the people you sold to, that really is a great thing, but truly great relationships developed. And what I found out about myself was I love helping people. I love helping people see a vision, helping them come in and act on it and bring it to life. Sometimes as an owner, I'm too close to the forest to see the trees, and it's great to have somebody come in and say, hey, let's back up here and take a look at the business. So, from there, I did operations for quite some time and got into the vice president of operations and development, made a lot of friends there. Ended up getting involved with their Walmart deal. I actually went back and forth to Bentonville, Arkansas, almost on a monthly basis. We had 3,000 stores in Walmarts. So really got to learn the business from that aspect as well. So, 35 years later, after running some company stores and franchise operations, the company originally was a privately held company. And then they became a publicly traded company. And when Syndic came in and purchased us, we're actually the number one performing stock in the country that year.
Wow.
Yeah. So after that, we came on some hard times. We ended up filing for bankruptcy, got bought out on the courthouse steps, ended into private equity. And 13 CEOs later, you seem like it's the same company, but it's really not. But just wonderful people there and truly a great opportunity. So, after that, it was, what's next? Like probably a lot of our viewers and people listening to this, I've done something. I've been an executive for quite some time. What do I really want to do when I grow up? And I started questioning that. And understanding franchises, I started evaluating what I like the most. And I thought, I really love the small company, the family-owned company, and the grassroots development. I started looking at industries and say, what industry do I want to be involved in? There are lots of service businesses, the guy in the truck business out there. The next big category probably is that pet space. Think's great opportunity there. I just don't see myself as the pet person. And the third space really is that senior care.
Mhm.
And I just started looking at it, and senior care really was starting to expand and starting to grow. And I started reaching out to some people in the industry, and I reached out to one of my great friends, Matt Collins, who's been with Tropical Smoothie and was with Papa Murphy's for quite some time. He said, "Rick, you got to meet these people. They're on a mission. It's a new company that's coming in the United States, and I think it'd be a really good fit for you." So I ended up meeting with Chris Webb, who was our president and CEO, and it really, as I say, checked a lot of those boxes. It was a privately held company. It was grassroots level. Weren't a lot of silos in the business. Everybody I went to, was like, how can I help? It wasn't not my job. It was how do I help? So I know it's a long-winded answer, but
No,
I
it's a great
really
answer, and I appreciate
enjoyed
you
the
kind of
process.
taking us back, and it's kind of interesting that you have the experience of being with a startup that became a household name brand, went through challenges, and you have the operations piece, you have the development piece, and now you're back with, an emerging brand in the United States, but it has its foothold in the UK. So, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. So here's this concept you found, Heart to Home Meals, that has 60 plus owners in the UK. It's an established brand over there. Now they're starting to franchise in the US. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, as much as we look like a brand new brand, somebody just trying to figure it out, we're not. As you said, the parent company, Appetito, is based out of Rhine, Germany, and they've been there since 1958, and they really are what I call global food producers. They're a company that anywhere you find where health and nutrition is important in a life cycle, whether it's the very, very young, the very old, and seniors, you'll find Appetito. They actually operate in about 7 different countries and different aspects of the business. And in 1958, they started with Wilshire Farm Foods, and Wilshire Farm Foods really is a very same or similar concept that has been delivering ready-to-eat meals to seniors in the United Kingdom now for over 60 years. And so, really, that's truly the exciting piece of that puzzle, is that as much as we look like a brand that is emerging, really aren't. So we were able to take that. The companies over there in Europe, I kind of look at them as mature companies. They're just not companies that are going to see double-digit increases, and that's really what the company was looking for, and saw North America being a great opportunity for that, and started courting and dating companies in Canada as well as the United States, and truly ended up finding a company in Canada that really made sense for them to kind of come in and purchase and launch a franchise system like this. So in 2010, they came into Canada and started franchising, and the whole Canadian market now has been completely developed. We
Okay.
have about 19 franchisees that actually own all of that market. And so it was extremely successful, and they started looking at the United States. I got, what, 45, 50 million people in Canada. I've got 350 in the United States. Huge, huge opportunity.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and and in 2019, they ended up coming into the United States as kind of our proof of concept, right? We say, great, it works in the United Kingdom, great, it works in Canada, but the US, we're just different. And so they wanted to have a kind of a test kitchen to make sure the business really did resonate with the consumers, and it was something we could do. So in 2019, they came in. And as we all know, COVID hit in 2020. And so that really kind of slowed some of our expansion. So 6 years later, after we've come out of COVID, we've had a lot of lessons learned about the business, and we've just started franchising. We actually had our first franchisee open up in Raleigh, North Carolina. His
Oh,
name is Patrick
congratulations. It's a
Ignacio.
great market.
Yeah, Patrick Ignacio, he and his wife were compound pharmacists, and during COVID, he saw a lot of patients coming in that were really, going back home with no one to look after them, no one to help them, and just saw the need for a food service like this. So
Yeah.
they ended up coming in.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. You mentioned before, like when you were looking for your next thing, that the senior space was on your short list. And, as a consultant, I shifted from mostly restaurants until, buy side consulting, and home services and senior care have been where I've spent a lot of my time and kind of directed a lot of my clients and placed quite a few in the space. And it's just such a massive market. And a lot of it is built around like the in-home care. And I like how, this is a little bit different and unique. It's the need is there, but you don't have as much competition as you might have in some of those other segments of franchising. So, Richard, one thing that you mentioned before was like it being mission driven. How would you describe Heart to Home Meals in terms of its mission and how it shapes the franchise up?
Yeah. Our mission really is to empower seniors to be able to stay independent. And that probably is one of the biggest focuses that we have is making sure, it sounds very simple, making sure seniors, have the proper health and the proper nutrition that they need, but it's not always that simple. So it really is a very mission oriented program that we're on. And I find that most of our franchisees that are attracted to this have been on that corporate ladder and they are now looking for something that they can get passionate about and feel as though they're giving back. So, it really is a unique opportunity, with a program such as this.
Yeah, it's something I hear a lot is everyone leads with, I want something that can replace my income or something that is going to give me, create wealth and independence, by aligning myself with the right model. But what I really hear is I want to give back to the community. I want to help people. And obviously something like this absolutely checks the box to care for seniors. So I wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit. I don't know the competitive landscape like you do, but for listeners, what sets your meal delivery model apart from other brands, franchises, or independents that are in the senior care or home health care concepts primarily within a franchising?
Yeah. So this is really very unique. There really is not a lot of competition when you really look at our market and what we're doing. Our president, Chris, always says, Rick, people were eating long before Heart to Home Meals came to town. And that's true. We just think we have a better value proposition. There are a lot of companies out there that you're probably familiar with, the HelloFresh, the Blue Apron. These are kind of meal prep companies that ship directly to the senior.
Hmm.
Again, these are meal kits. Not all of my seniors have the ability to stand at a stove and prepare meals and chop onions. Some days are better than others. There are other companies out there like Factor Meals that truly are the full meal, a Factor Meal or Mom's Meals. Most of these meals arrive chilled. They're shipped UPS, Federal Express, and they're just sent in a box with dry ice.
Hmm.
And if you can imagine your 85-year-old father, going out to the porch to lift a 30-pound box of dry ice to pull it in the house to put his groceries away to now have to discard,
Doesn't
it's
seem
just
very
not
practical.
it doesn't seem very practical. And so really as much as this is a food business, is a personal connection business. And our drivers truly make a difference coming into the home, making that connection with Mike, talking to him, getting involved with him, with the pictures on the wall, the piano in the corner, and just really making that personal connection. There's a lot of power in that piece of the business.
Yeah, being in your business, like this isn't an exterior services where it's pest control outside or it's lawn services. Like the people that are coming in the homes of the seniors, they have to be the right type of people for this position. So I can imagine an owner has to be really selective about, the personalities that they choose to come into the homes of the seniors. So that leads me to my next question. Like, what do you look for, not only in the UK and Canada, but as you come into the States, what makes a successful Heart to Home Meals franchise owner?
As much as this business is in a huge growth segment, as much as this business is very scalable, I'm not looking for the guy that comes to me and say, Rick, I don't care if I'm selling donuts, washing cars, or flowers. I want to make as much money as I can. I'm looking for the guy that comes and says, I want to make a difference. I want to get involved. I want to make relationships, do connections, and I'm looking to make money. They have to have that passion. You know, I used to always say that I can teach somebody to run a business and operate a business. I can't teach somebody to be a nice person. So I got to find somebody that truly is a nice person, that is outgoing, that wants to develop a business in the community, and, as I say, become the mayor of the community. That really is who I'm looking for. A lot of people in the healthcare field find us because it resonates so well. You know, a lot of people, like you were talking about senior care, a lot of people that are looking at senior care and they say, wow, I'm passionate about it because I love my senior. I'm passionate about it because I'm making a difference, but I really don't want to run a staffing business. And I'm concerned. I don't want to get mom and dad out of the bathtub, and I don't want to manage medication, and on and on and on. And they see this as a great opportunity to be able to give back, to tap into that market that's growing so fast without being as close as a caregiver.
Yeah, because when you're inside providing care, it can be a wide variety of care, right? It could be everything from changing a light bulb to companionship to medication distribution to grocery shopping to this to that. Whereas you guys have a very specific discipline, right? You're coming in there to deliver the meal. It's a much quicker in and out, and you know exactly what you're doing, and I'm sure different things happen as you interact with the seniors, but it's, you know, very specific as to what you do. There's not a lot of, you know, questioning as to what we do when we get to the home. So tell me a little bit about the trends in the space. Like, are you seeing a lot of growth in the space? I feel like senior care, you know, in the last 5 years that I've been in the franchise consulting space, it just keeps growing. There's just more demand than supply, the silver tsunami, you know, everything you hear. But is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, you could almost do the show for me. Absolutely, exactly what you're saying. You know, all those statistics, and there are like 11,000 people a day that are aging into the 65-year-old category. The next, I think, 3 or 4 years is the biggest boom section of those boomers becoming seniors. Something in the nature of 80 million people are going to be over the age of 65 in the next 15 years. And like you're saying, the healthcare system just isn't set up to be able to handle that. And the number one reason that, well, you know, first of all, our mission is to let people stay independent as long as they would like to. Nobody wants to go into the you know, senior home. Everybody would like to stay there. And one of the triggers that really causes seniors to have to go and look for assisted living is getting the proper food and proper nutrition. So as our senior population gets older, as the available health care and places, alternatives for them start to get smaller and smaller and smaller, the senior care space is just continuing to grow. And as I say, you know, as much as it looks like we're in the food space, we really are in the senior care space. It's about, you know, making connections and being able to relate to that senior.
Okay. So if someone listening is really interested in your model, but they've never done it before, can you touch on, you know, your training and support for new franchisees and kind of like a high level, what
Yeah.
aspect of this are they doing? Are they preparing the meals in a facility? Clearly that there's a transportation and a labor component here, but can you kind of give us a high level of what they're going to be doing and what the training and support looks like?
Yeah, so, but you asked about the meals. You know, how they prepare them. I'd be happy to address that. We have a facility in Ottawa, Canada, that produces all of our meals. All of our meals are frozen, and we have 2 chefs there that actually prepare the meals for us, and 2 dietitians that make sure the meals are, you know, what they should be. As you'd imagine, we have meals that are low in sodium. We have meals that are high in fiber. We have diabetic meals. We have renal-friendly meals, heart-healthy meals, anything that you could imagine for that senior to have. So that really is a big piece of the business, is making sure that they have that food in a timely process. As far as the training that we provide them, as I said, we're headquartered out of Boston. It's kind of our proof of concept. That business is running itself right now. So we have a whole team there that truly is focused on the launching of brand new franchisees, and we'll be there to hold your hand, you know, to help you through the process. As you'd imagine, everybody is talking to my franchisees in Canada right now, but I realize that a year from now, nobody's going to hear from anybody in Canada. It's what's going on in the United States. And because of that, we have a team that will help you launch your business. Chris Webb, our president, will stay connected with you, you know, throughout the process to get your business up and going. You'll spend some time in Ottawa, Canada, at our facility. We have a very hands-on approach there in Boston. We'll be able to teach you everything from, how do I stock my inventory? How do I answer my calls? How do I route my drivers? How do I make sure packages are being delivered like they should? It really is a hands-on week-long training class. How do I get paid? That will kind of march you through and walk you through that process. After that, you're back to your office there. You've got your coolers, you've got your trucks, we've shipped your food. And we're actually going to send a trainer out to you to spend a week with you. There's no way that you're ever going to remember everything that we taught you in Boston. And we want to make sure that the business kicks off and is successful. So we'll send a trainer out to spend the week. We also have a call center specialist that we'll send out. It'll be a very hand-holding experience. Right now, I have two franchisees in the United States, and I'm not looking. There's some franchise systems that are looking to have 30 and 15, 100 and 200. I'm not looking to scale like that. I'm looking to have freshman class of 10 or 15 strong franchisees that we can spend time with and have the bandwidth to help them.
So we need vehicles. We need likely an industrial space. It doesn't have to be like AAA retail. How big of a footprint do your owners generally need to execute the model? I know it depends on how big the delivery radius is and how much territory you take, but generally speaking, like in Raleigh, how big is our facility?
Yeah, so I think the best way to answer that is really you're going to need a place to house that freezer. And that freezer is probably going to be 300 to 400 square foot, 20 by 20, 15 by 15. You can keep a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks worth of food in there and manage the business. There's not a lot of additional space needed. Somewhere a call center, I'd say a call center, anywhere where you've got a phone line, internet connection, you've got the ability to take incoming calls. Our seniors, you're talking about Blue Apron and HelloFresh. They're not picking up their cell phone to call Uber Eats or Grubhub. They want someone they can call and speak to. So 70% of our seniors are calling us over the phone into your call center to place that order.
Okay.
When I got out of the Jackson Hewitt business, one of the other things that I was really looking for is something that really wasn't heavily reliant on retail space, not having to be next to Target or, Jimmy John's or Subway and not competing and signing up with a $40,000 or $50,000 lease, start the business. This can be done really in an industrial park. It can be done in a mixed use type of facility. It's not customer facing. So you don't have to put a lot of money into getting that space that you would if you were running a normal retail location.
Yeah. I think you touched on this a little bit, but it's on my mind. Like, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that candidates that you work with that are evaluating your concept or your industry, what do they have about kind of the senior meal delivery space? What comes to mind?
Yeah, I think probably the first thing is, you're in the food business. Yeah, we are, but we're not managing, cooks and we don't have hoods and fryers and all of that stuff. You really aren't in the food business, so to speak. You're in the customer service business is what you are. So I'm looking for somebody logistically that, has that mindset that this is a customer service business. There are a lot of people, I know you deal with them all the time, they're looking for a part-time gig, they wanna keep their full-time job and just kinda do this on the side. Again, this is a relationship business where you really need to be out, connecting with case managers, in the market, meeting with local civic centers, talking in front of the 55 and over community. So I think those are some of the big misconceptions that this is kind of just a part-time gig, and that this is a food business. This really is a relationship business.
Yeah. So let's talk item 7. Like if someone's like, this sounds perfect for me, what's it going to cost to get in the business? I know that there's a variance based on the size of the space you take, but it seems like you have that 20 by 20 box and you have some other office supplies. What's kind of our item 7 guidance?
Yeah. So the guidance there, we say it's about 139,000 to 330,000 to get up and going. A lot of that's going to be tied up in that truck, that refrigerated freezer truck. Some of that's going to be tied up in the freezer, probably $10,000 or $12,000 in inventory, and that probably is the bulk of it. The other variable really is going to be that location. Am I renting a 5,000 square foot location at $15 a square, or was I able to get a 1,000 square foot location a little bit more reasonable? So we're looking anywhere from 130 to to 300,000. Most people, in situations where I've had people apply for SBA loans, they're usually looking for about $225,000 to get them in and help them kind of cash flow for the first couple of months of the business.
Yeah, I mean, 300,000 or less is really affordable, especially when you compare it to the food business counterparts where the variance in item 7 is massive. It could be like, 300,000 on the low end to 1,200,000 on the high end. So when you don't have to put in the grease traps and the fryers and the hoods and the
Yeah.
ventilation, I can see how it becomes more predictable from a item 7 standpoint. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about item 19. Do you guys provide earnings guidance for those that are evaluating the model?
Yeah, we do. We don't have any franchisees right now that have completed a year in business with us here in the United States. So what we've done is we've included the financial information of all of our franchisees in Canada. The item 19 there says that the average franchisee is generating over 770,000 in revenue for the year, and that has been increasing. The other interesting thing in there, we provide guidance for our corporate operation in Boston. And our corporate operation has gone from about 1.5 million in revenue to over 4 million in revenue
Wow.
just this year. And we'll have other numbers to report on that. You say the wow piece of it. When you asked earlier about, what's changing in the industry and what's going on, there has been a big shift to food as medicine, and people are looking at more of not treating chronic illness and providing drugs, but really looking at how can we leverage food, provide healthy nutritional meals for people so they don't get into the situation where they need that medication. And with that, we've been able to partner with a lot of groups, Medicare and Medicaid programs, where they actually are able to purchase food from a Medicaid program or a Medicare program. And so that really is what's driven that number from 1.4 million. And I think is going to continue to increase the more that we're able to get out there locally and work with Medicaid and Medicare and show the difference that it can make. As you'd imagine for an insurance company, the number one thing they don't want to do is have that senior leave the hospital and they get readmitted, a week later. It costs them thousands of dollars to do that. So they look at us and say, wow, if we can keep them healthy and keep them in their home, it makes a lot more sense. You know, that really has affected that item 19.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. Thanks for sharing all that detail with us. Richard, this has been great. It's really eye-opening. It's a really compelling concept. It's different than a lot of franchise concepts I've seen out there. Anything else that you want to add to the mix before we wrap up today?
Mike, I just really appreciate, the opportunity to be here and kind of share our story. It really is a passion driven mission. I'm excited about the company, because it is emerging. There's so many other franchise concepts out there where prime markets, prime territories, just aren't available anymore. We're an emerging brand, but we're not in that we've got deep pockets in order to help fund our development program. And I would love just to speak with anybody and share the story. Uh, yeah,
And I think this is a great concept. I mean, I think that everything lines up. Having that experience doing this in the UK and Canada, now there's already proof of concept with a corporate
absolutely.
presence in Boston. You have a franchise owner in Raleigh. It sounds like,
Right.
also you're not looking for 1,000 franchisees. It looks
No,
like if you had a couple
no.
dozen really good ones, they can build really big businesses. So if anyone listening would like to connect with Rick to learn more about becoming a franchise owner with Heart to Home Meals, contact me at franchiseqb.com. I'll get you connected. Thank you, Rick, so much for taking the time to get in the huddle with us today.
Absolutely. Have a great day, Mike.
You got it.
Thank you for listening to the Franchise QB podcast, where you're at the helm of your future as a franchise owner. If you enjoyed the content, please rate the show and recommend it to anyone that might be interested in franchising. Make sure to visit franchiseqb.com to subscribe to my newsletter and for an actionable playbook to go from walk-on to legend in your new business. Follow us on Twitter at QB and join us every week for a new episode. See you next time.
Visit franchiseqb.com to take the next step of your journey towards wealth, independence, and franchise ownership. And remember, when working for the man gets old, you must do something bold. Thank you for listening.